What if the NFL mock drafts are correct? So we may not know what's actually going to happen in the future. If we did, everything would be so much easier, right? Here's what we're going to do though. We're going to look at NFL mock draft database, and we're going to look at consensus drafts here, drafts that are compiled from all over in every corner of the internet, and see what these say. And we're going to react to this as if this was the result of the 2024 NFL draft and see what that means for fantasy football. So let's dive straight into it. Let me pull up the draft here. I've got NFL draft database. There it is. Okay, so first things first, Caleb Williams, of course, going to the Bears, number one. He becomes instantly just like the 101 in every super flex draft. I think Marvin over him still, regardless in one quarterback drafts. But if you need QB, I get it. I love second here though. Jaden Daniels going number 2 to Washington, and that's what I kind of personally think will happen. That's what I think should happen. I would love this for Jaden. This guy, to me, any quarterback that goes to Washington is kind of an instant winner to me. I think they just have the best ecosystem for a quarterback. I think with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson being there, Austin Eckler also catch passes out of the backfield for you. I think there's just a lot of goodness to be had there in Washington. It's definitely of all the like QB needy situations, I think Washington is like my favorite landing spot outside of Chicago. I almost don't even view Chicago as like available for a quarterback because I just like have assigned Caleb Williams there already. Drake May going next over there to New England. I don't love it. It kind of is what it is. I just they don't really have any weapons. Like as healthy as an ecosystem as I feel like Chicago and Washington both are for a quarterback, the setup in New England is just the complete opposite, right? Like there's just no one there to help you get that immediate production, that immediate help. Like at best, we're looking at a situation where like what Trevor Lawrence had as a rookie, getting Christian Kirk in year 2, right? Like that's kind of what I feel like is like at best in New England. And that's really gonna scare me off from a rookie quarterback. Yeah, Marvin Harrison going fourth to Arizona. That totally makes sense. Number 5 is interesting here. So I actually disagree with this pick quite a bit. The consensus mock has Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver from LSU, going to the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't think this is what the Chargers should or will do. I think they would just with the personnel they've got there, I think going in the trenches makes a lot more sense for Jim Harbaugh and for Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator. I think that I would love it for Neighbors and that he's hooked up with Justin Herbert, but I wouldn't love it because I just feel like it's gonna be a run-heavy plan going into it. Like, when have we ever liked a wide receiver that's been accompanied with Greg Roman, right? That just doesn't happen. Number 6 here, Rome Odunze. So that's interesting. If this were to be how it would happen, I would still be ranking Neighbors over Odunze in rookie drafts for dynasty purposes. But Odunze gets to step right in and be an X wide receiver, be a true number 1 wideout for an offense. So that's exciting. And Brian Daboll, the head coach, that's exciting too. Quarterback doesn't excite me, but I think that would change in a year from now anyway. So that would not, I wouldn't love it from that regard, but I think that pretty much would solidify though. Like I'm going into the NFL draft under the assumption that these 6 players are the top 6 players for dynasty. And I don't see if this plays out, I think that would remain the same, right? I don't think that would change. I don't think anybody would crack that top 6. Next up, Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, tight end of Georgia, going to the New York Jets at number 10. How would I feel about that? So I'm not that in on Bowers. This is for dynasty. This whole episode really is targeted towards dynasty and these rookies. I'm not too huge on Bowers, mainly because rookie tight ends, I'm just never really too excited on them. I would rather almost like pay a premium for a veteran guy. Or buy low on these guys after they don't break out as rookies. So Brock Bowers, and man, to the Jets too, it would have really Atlanta Falcon vibes in a way where it's like we'd have Brees and Garrett and Bowers, and I'd have questions at quarterback as soon as 2025. I've got some questions about Rodgers for this year. But as soon as next year, though, I would definitely have you having some major questions at the quarterback position. Speaking of quarterback, we got a couple of them here. So JJ McCarthy going to Minnesota. That's pretty exciting. That's actually probably my favorite landing spot for JJ. I think JJ is really, really good at like diagnosing things and using his options. I don't. I'm trying not to use the phrase game manager with JJ because I don't think that's fair to him. But I think that he's just really, really good at getting the most out of everybody else around him. Like Kirk Cousins, ironically in Minnesota, is that kind of a quarterback, right? Good at reading defenses, good processing, and not the most like athletically gifted guy. Kirk went round 4 for that reason, really. But he won the job because he was so good at figuring out the Mike Shanahan offense way back when in Washington. And so that's kind of how I feel about JJ. And I think that JJ going to Washington, having Addison and Jefferson right off the bat would be great. Of course, you have TJ Hawkinson too. So like that would get me excited about McCarthy. He still would not crack the top 3 though. If JJ went to Minnesota and Drake May went to New England, is that enough to get me to put JJ over May? I don't think it is. But if the capital, oh man, if the draft capital happens though to where JJ goes at like 4 or 5, like a trade up situation, like in this, there's not going to be any trades. So JJ goes at 11 to Minnesota. But in a world though where Minnesota moves all the way up to 4 or 5 to ensure they get him, they invest that kind of capital in him. They have that kind of belief in him. Maybe I should too. I don't know, man. JJ is one of the hardest players for me for rookie drafts. Like I know people who are really, really high on him. I know people who really are very low on him. And I'm weirdly like in the middle. It's as Spanuels don't see with JJ. Like everybody's either all in or all out. Who's next here? So we have another quarterback, Bo Nix to the Denver Broncos. It's all the guys I'm all out on. I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I don't. Gosh, I'm going 12th overall to Denver. That feels like a major reach, right? Like I don't think he's a first round quality player at all. I prefer Washington, Michael Penix over Bo Nix for sure, and I think I even prefer Spencer Rattler over Bo Nix. So that would not be encouraging at all. He would definitely be my QB5. Probably actually, well, we'll see where the rest of these guys go, but yeah, if he's getting first round capital, because I don't think Penix is. So if Bo Nix goes in the first half of the first round, he is my 5th quarterback, and he's probably a early 2 in rookie drafts for super flex. 1 QB, don't even bother. But like, I mean, throw a dart late, sure, whatever. But like super flex drafts, a bit more into it. Who we got next year? We're gonna do the first 2 rounds, by the way. NFL mock draft database, they do first 2 rounds for consensus, and so we're gonna talk those fantasy positions here. Brian Thomas Jr. for first wide receiver in a bit here to go off the board. Brian Thomas Jr. also from LSU, teammates with Malik Neighbors out there. Going to Jacksonville. So that's an exciting landing spot because, like, they brought in Gabe Davis, but they lost Calvin Ridley. So there's definitely targets to be had. There's definitely upside to be had. I don't love Brian Thomas Jr. as a player, as a receiver, but I do love that fit in that situation. I would like it more if they didn't just sign Gabe Davis. But if that were to happen, I want to see where Troy Franklin and where Ladd McConkey end up in this draft. If these were the results, right? Like, I think I would still probably prefer those 2 and maybe even Xavier Worthy. So we'll see where they end up also. But I definitely I like seeing Thomas go this high. But yeah, it's not a prospect I'm in love with though. He's like, there's 3 wide receivers that haven't been picked, maybe even 4 Coleman. That I do prefer over Brian Thomas. Let's see who's next. Michael Penix. Wow. Okay, so in this is one of those things that's going to happen when we do a draft like this, where you're kind of compiling from different sources, and you can see, by the way, on the screen the popularity percentage. This is only happening in 10% of mocks, so there's a whole bunch of them where this isn't what's happening. But this is just the leading pick at the Vikings spot in 23. And it's Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback from Washington. So I like this fit a lot. Like JJ, I think he's a guy who can operate an offense. I like him more than Bo Nix in that regard, and more than Spencer Rattler too in that regard. I prefer a world where who do I prefer to be Minnesota's quarterback, JJ or Penix? Probably JJ. It's JJ. But like if Penix can go to Minnesota and kind of play right away, I can see a world where that actually does work out. His injuries are a major question, of course, but like Penix in Minnesota, that could be pretty interesting. You know what else is interesting? These videos. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for all the videos that we've got upcoming with all sorts of different good stuff coming for you. We're gonna have rookie stuff just out the wazoo for the next like month before the NFL draft, and of course the fallout thereafter. And speaking of falling out, that was a terrible transition. Adonai Mitchell here. That's fallout of Gabe Davis leaving Buffalo. There you go. There's my smooth transition. Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas, going to Buffalo Bills here. This is 25% popularity. That's interesting. So the one I don't totally love because like right down there at the bottom of the screen is Xavier Worthy, who I prefer as a player. I'd rather see him go to Buffalo than Adonai Mitchell, but that's cool. If Adonai Mitchell were to go to Buffalo, I think he'd become. I mean, gosh, we haven't seen Ladd or Troy Franklin yet. Where's Troy Franklin at in my first round here? If Adonai Mitchell gets the second best draft capital of like the tier 2 wide receivers, and it's with Buffalo, I think he instantly becomes wide receiver 4. Like I would rather him than Brian Thomas in this situation. With Thomas going to Jacksonville, Mitchell going to Buffalo, I think I'd prefer Adonai Mitchell. And so, he could slide right into that wide receiver 2 spot. I'm really worried about Stephon Diggs and what his future could be and what his future holds. So, yeah, I could be really interested in Adonai Mitchell in that spot. So, so here's my guys. All right. This is exciting. And this is one of those things that's also going to happen when you do a compilation like this. They've got Xavier Worthy going to Kansas City. I don't think that's happening now. They've signed Hollywood Brown, but I'm sure a lot of these mocks just like are older, not updated. So I'm going to kind of push that one to the side a little bit here. Just because I don't think that's going to be the landing spot for Xavier Worthy. If it were to still happen and Kansas City was just like, hey, we want Hollywood Brown and another Hollywood Brown, I wouldn't totally love it. I wouldn't. It'd be kind of eating each other there, but that's okay. We'll just kind of pass over that one. But here we go. Ladd McConkey and Troy Franklin. God, going back to Carolina and New England. So I love these two players. These are my two favorite wide receivers in the draft. Like, of course, there's the big three who are just like the obvious best three in the draft. They're at the very top of the draft. But these are my two guys among like this group. These are the two guys who I'm targeting a lot. Like, I've been kind of accruing like 108, 109, 110s, and 110s. In hopes of these two players getting good landing spots. And to see Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver from Georgia, go to the Carolina Panthers, and then one pick later to have Troy Franklin out of Oregon go to New England, that would just like tear me apart. Now, the good news here, both of those guys would be instantly paired with highly drafted young quarterbacks. So, like, if Drake May's good and him and Troy Franklin are just like, if there's AJ Green and Andy Dalton, right, for the next like 8 years, and if Ladd McConkey can come in and pick up Bryce Young and bring him to the promised land, then like maybe there's something that can happen there. But you know what? And I like the moves from an NFL standpoint. I really do. I think those are both great NFL picks. But God, my little dynasty heart just broke, though, for sure. Who we got next here? Okay. This one makes a lot more sense to me. I am much more in on the idea of this. Roman Wilson, wide receiver of Michigan, going to the Chargers in round 2. I'm more in on that than I am the idea of Malik Nabers going to the Chargers in round 1. Obviously, both of these things would not happen together. Again, this is a side effect from a compilation of drafts, right? Some drafts are going to have Roman Wilson round 2. Some drafts are going to have Malik Nabers in round 1. The overlap there is 0%. So you're not going to get both of those, but you're going to get one or the other in this situation. So I'm going to treat this as if only one or the other were to happen. So we're going to play a little bit of a multiverse game, even though I know we're all very burnt out in multiverses. So in this multiverse where the Chargers take let's go with Joe Alt in round 1, and they take the wide receiver in round 2 with Roman Wilson. I'm a little bit more interested in Roman Wilson there than I would be if, let's say, Roman Wilson went to Tennessee or if Wilson went to Carolina. Relinking up with Jim Harbaugh, I would like that for him because there's familiarity. Maybe there'd then be some priority in the offense. Also, like, he's a round 2 player. He just is. He's not a round 1 guy. He's not a super mega elite guy. For Malik Neighbors, I've got elite hopes for him. I just don't know if he can hit elite hopes with Jim Harbaugh. Roman Wilson, I've got like flex hopes. I've got wide receiver 3 hopes. I've got low-end wide receiver 2 hopes down the road, right? I think he can hit that with Jim Harbaugh and with Greg Roman. So, like, I would just rather my big high-end wide receiver not be on the Chargers, but I'm cool with it if it's Roman Wilson. Then we got Jatavian Sanders, tight end out of Texas here, going in round 2 to Carolina. So in this world, in this multiverse, both weapons here for the first 2 picks for the Carolina Panthers. And I actually think that makes a lot of sense when we go both a wide receiver and a tight end. I wouldn't love it for Sanders. I'd basically be ignoring him in rookie drafts, but like I'd be okay with it from an NFL standpoint. Oh man, Keon Coleman going to New Orleans. Gosh, I'm trying to remember New Orleans' wide receiver depth chart on my head right now. Like, I know you got Olave and you got Shaheed. Who the heck? They didn't sign anybody, did they? I mean, there's nobody here to answer that for me. So I don't think they did. Keon Coleman as like the number 2 opposite Chris Olave. That could be kind of fun. I could like that a little bit. Keon Coleman's a prospect that really confuses me. So, like, he ran a super slow 40 time, but then he killed it on the gauntlet and, like, ran faster than, like, anyone else did in the gauntlet, the combine. So it's like, is his play speed better than his run speed? And if so, what really matters here, right? Like, I think that just, like, that epitomizes the Keon Coleman conundrum of, like, he's not fast enough to get open, but he is fast enough to play. And just like, is that going to still work in the NFL? We've seen it work. We've seen it not work. He's a prospect. An enigma to me. Jalen Polk going to Indy here. I'm not in love with that because I like Josh Downs. And I really like Michael Pittman. I would not want them to be taking a wide receiver in round 2. And gosh, I feel like he'd be kind of almost, I don't know about buried in the depth chart, but like he wouldn't have an easy path to playing time, really. Oh gosh, Theo Johnson going to the Bengals. So I kind of made the comment during my tight end re-rank about always falling for Cincinnati Bengals tight ends. And if Theo Johnson, who was just like this just monster at the combine, went to the Bengals, I'd be so in. But I would try not to be, but I would be. I would be taking him. I don't know. I wouldn't send back any second round rookie picks, I don't think. Because like there's running backs that we're not going to talk about today. Because we're only talking about the first 2 rounds, but like we may not see a single running back. But I would take plenty of those guys over him, no matter landing spot. But if he goes to Cincinnati, I'd be super interested. Who's next here? Xavier Legette. So Xavier Legette, wide receiver from South Carolina. They got him going to Pittsburgh. He's another one who's like super interesting. He's like that big, strong, fast guy who I'm not sure is actually good at football or not. But have him go to Pittsburgh, pair up with Russ. Russ has done some stuff with a guy who sounds like that, doesn't he? Sounds like a little DK Metcalf, like, if you ask me. But they already have kind of that guy a little bit with George Pickens, like kind of raw, toolsy wide receiver, like go route guy. So I don't love the fit there, but that could be a thing. I wouldn't totally hate it. At the very end of this video, by the way, I'm going to rank my rookies based on these landing spots. So stick around for that. And Xavier Legette, I think I would prefer him for sure over Jalen Polk. I would prefer Keon Coleman, though. And him versus Roman Wilson, that'd be interesting. Who we got next here? Jermaine Burton going to the Eagles. Blag. I do not like that one, but he'd be the wide receiver 3. He'd be the like 5th target, 6th if you count just like running the ball with Jalen Hurts. So I wouldn't like that one bit. He'd be buried on that depth chart. And I don't know if he'd ever get out of it. Oh, hey, Jonathan Brooks. So we have a running back here. Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of Texas, he's the one who tore his ACL last season. And, man, If Jonathan Brooks got round 2 draft capital from Dallas specifically, like that would be really exciting. He would definitely be RB1. I'm assuming no other running backs in round 1 here. I've only got a few picks left. I'm sorry, in round 2. So if Jonathan Brooks goes in round 2, that tells me they're not worried about the medicals. And if he goes round 2 to Dallas, where they don't have a running back like at all, rocket ship emojis. That's what that would be. That would be rocket ship emojis. He would fly up the draft boards. I'll do those rankings here in just a little bit when I compile all these landing spots, but like, I feel like he's a round 1 pick in rookie drafts then. Are there any others here? Oh, hey, okay. Well, this is fun. So, Ricky Pearsall going to my favorite team, the Baltimore Ravens, and I always point to the wrong side because I look at myself and I have myself mirrored. This side, well, that's the Angels. So over there they are, the Baltimore Ravens. So my favorite team getting Ricky Pearsall, who like Ladd McConkey is probably my favorite wide receiver in the draft. Ricky Pearsall is like diet Ladd McConkey, and that's a lot of fun. I like Ricky a lot. I think this would be a really fun pickup for the Ravens. And they could use a guy like him too. You know, Bateman really isn't much of anything, and he could fill in the Odell routes run pretty simply, and wouldn't really have to do a whole heck of a lot to make up for that production. So that's it then. All right, I'm gonna rank these guys, and I'll be right back. So now that we know the future, let's rank these guys. There actually works out really, really well. There's 24 players here, so we had 2 full rounds of a 12-team mock draft. Now, I am only going to be ranking the players who were involved in that draft. So, for example, Jonathan Brooks is the only running back, and that just won't be the case come real drafts. But just for fun, for the purposes of this exercise, let's see how that would play out. So, at number 1 in a Superflex draft, Superflex PPR, for Dynasty, I'm going Caleb Williams here at the very top. He went 101 to Chicago, gets him paired up, just like we all expect, with those wide receivers. Now, number 2, this was a really tough decision for me between Jayden Daniels and going back to quarterback or going with Marvin Harrison Jr., landing with Arizona. That's what I decided to do here. I decided to go Marvin Harrison, but this is definitely a team-by-team decision, though, here. If you need quarterback, go Jayden Daniels, and that brings me straight into number 3 here, and that is Jayden Daniels, landing with the Washington Commanders. So that's the top 3. To me, that's definitely a strong tier. If you're in a Superflex draft, and this is how it were to play out, you want one of those top 3 picks to me. It's not even a decision. Then we kind of step into the next tier, and with the fact that Troy Franklin landed in New England in the round 2 of this draft, that gives me the confidence to make Drake May my pick at 4. Also going to New England. I don't love what he's got around him, but I think Franklin being there is enough to convince me to go quarterback in Superflex, combined with the fact that Malik Nabers ended up in not my favorite spot, the Chargers. I've got him going 5th right behind Drake May. And then I've got Rome Odunze falling to 6th. I love that value for Odunze, though. That's the guy I really want to go get in this scenario here. It would be him at 6 going to the Giants. Then at 7, I have Brock Bowers, the tight end. He landed with the New York Jets. Then at 8, we go back to quarterback here with J.J. McCarthy, as he, in one multiverse scenario here, is the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. And then that's kind of another big cutoff point to me. Like, there's top 3, then there's top 6, and then there's top 8. And once you get outside that top 8, I really start asking some additional questions, especially with where these guys landed. In this round of mocks, I do not love the landing spot for the wide receivers who I do really love as players. And because of that, at number 9, I got Adonai Mitchell here at 9. Going to Buffalo, I'll take him here over those other guys, even though I do prefer those other prospects a bit more. I just love that landing spot, though, for A.D. Mitchell. And that's something that's so easy to just kind of fall into. It can be a trap in that regard, but I do really like it quite a bit. And then number 10 here, because of the draft capital, being the one running back we do have for this draft, but because of that draft capital being round 2 tells me that the medicals are good. Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of Dallas, that would be my pick here for sure. At 10, to me, it's kind of another bit of another slot there where it's kind of easy decisions. Then it gets real tough. I've got 4 wide receivers here, and these are all 4 players. 3 of the 4 for sure I like a whole lot, but I decided to go landing spot first here again and draft capital because in these mocks, they've got Brian Thomas going at 17. The last wide receiver that I've got here, I'm sorry, not last, but second to last wide receiver I've got here going in round 1. So I got Brian Thomas here with his Jacksonville landing spot. Then the 112, Ladd McConkey with Carolina. 201 is Troy Franklin, and the 202 then would be Xavier Worthy. That's a really hard spot to navigate. As all those wide receivers are right there, that late 1, early 2 range. And then I got the other multiverse quarterback here, Michael Penix, being with Minnesota. I prefer him over Bo Nix, being in Denver, but Bo Nix I have being the next pick at 16th overall. Then we go back to wide receiver here. It's another real big group here, but one guy to me does kind of stand out above the rest on the board here, and that's Keon Coleman with the New Orleans Saints. I went Coleman at 17th overall, then Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen Polk, and then Jermaine Burton to kind of round out the late round 2 wide receivers. And it's Dynasty. I don't love tight ends. I always almost prefer in any situation to be taking these other guys over them. So that puts Jatavian Sanders and Theo Johnson as the final 2 picks for this mock. So guys, again, this is not a complete mock. We don't have, we only have 1 running back in this one, right? But it's based on what's happening right now, what people are currently mocking. Of course, we're going to get all the answers to this in about a month's time, and I cannot wait. We're going to have so much more. I'm going to go through each position one more time with some previews on each of these players, some rankings on those rookies. We're going to talk some more about just kind of what we feel about them, some of my favorite guys in different value spots throughout the drafts, and kind of what the fallout is going to be of these picks. So stick it right here with the ADP. Be sure to like and subscribe. Stick around and comment down below. What were some of your guys' favorite landing spots from this draft? Would you really be excited about Bo Nix in Denver? I not so much. What about Keon Coleman in New Orleans? I found that one to be pretty interesting. A.D. Mitchell in Buffalo, that could have some major upsides. Let me know down below how you guys are feeling about these players.